Thank you for joining EAC Product Development Solutions today. My name is Sierra Mickler. Today we're going to be showing you some great project collaboration tools that Onshape offers. Okay, I will now hand things over to Bill so he can show us Onshape and how you can keep your design teams more collaborative. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for the intro. That was great. And hello, everybody. Thanks for attending today. I'm going to be talking about a particular aspect of Onshape, really how it's going to help us do project design. So I'm only going to show one slide, so that's probably a good thing. But interestingly enough, is that Onshape is made up more of just CAD, developing products. There's also other aspects to it, all, of course, in the cloud. There's aspects of data management, workflow. If we're creating products, we also have workflows to help get them through the design process. We have great communication capabilities built into Onshape. There's a mobile aspect which really makes it unique, that we can access and work with Onshape with a cell phone. There's also task management, so I can assign activities to people. Again, that kind of works with the data management aspect of things. And certainly if we're developing products, we have to be able to make use and manipulate bills of material. And security, of course, in the cloud. So with that, I am going to kill my PowerPoint and start to work with Onshape. So this is my login page. When I log into Onshape, this is where it brings me. And what we see across the top here are components and things that I've been working on recently. Below are various folders that either I have created or others have given me access to. So we can create any type of folder structure we want to organize our data. So with this, let's go in and start to look at something. So we're going to be kind of developing fixturing for a product today. So I'm going to call up a drawing here of a casting that we really want to create the fixturing for. And the nice thing about Onshape is that everything that I do today is going to be in the cloud. Nothing is loaded on my computer. It doesn't access any of the capabilities of my computer. In some shaded images, it might be hitting the graphics card a little bit, but other than that, nothing. So you don't need a high-end laptop or desktop to work with this at all. Here we have a casting that I'm going to be actually asking help for someone to kind of create a fixture for this. And while that's being done, I'm going to do some of my own work, right? Because that's how projects are, is we kind of divide up the work amongst groups of people and work that way. And maybe one thing I should maybe highlight here, speaking of groups of people, is that Onshape has a concept of a company. Which users do you have that can work with Onshape? And so here, what we have are the different people here at EAC that work with Onshape. We can break those people, if we have a larger company, into teams. We can create whatever teams we want and then apply the different users to those teams. You can obviously be a member of more than one team, but it's a good way of distributing information. If I need to distribute something for maybe a review, I might send it to the managers or to a particular Tiger team that's maybe working on our project or something like that. So a lot of nice aspects to it there. I did mention earlier that there is workflows in here, so there is built-in release management. Everything that I start and create in Onshape is kind of categorized as in progress, or WIP, if you want to think of it that way. If we need to release that, then we send it to approval, and then that can either be approved, rejected for further work, or maybe just totally dump it. One of the things we can do here as well that's built in Onshape is a part numbering system. So we can take parts, assemblies, drawings, files, give them a prefix, determine how many characters are in our automatic part numbering, and then we can get previews of that. So this is another built-in capability that Onshape has. So let's go back and take a look at what we were working on here. And again, we want to make a fixture for this this casting. Now, as we saw, we just have a drawing of it here. And what's unique about Onshape is that we can collaborate and work very easily with others. And again, that's the whole idea of working with, in a project or something like that. One of the things that I have here is also the main plate that we're going to fixture this particular component on. So I'm going to ask for somebody to kind of do that work for me while I develop one of the clamps for this. So I'm going to say I want to share this. I can share it with somebody and kind of informally give them access. So right now, nobody has access to any of this information until I deem that we should do that. So I could say, let's create a comment, and I'm going to say, let's send it to someone. We saw that list of people before in the EAC ecosystem. So I'm going to say, let's send it to Nick. So we have a couple different Nicks in the company. I'm going to send it to this one and just say, can you fixture this? And I can't spell very good. And what I can do is just send him this note. And I'm going to be sharing it with him. I'm going to assign this as a task to him. So it's actually going to show up on his to-do list, like we have in a lot of data management systems. And we're going to say assign this. So this gets sent to him and says, you are now going to be sending this to Nick, so he will have access to it. You're sharing this with him. So I'll say, okay. And as a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is go in here, and right now he has viewing capabilities, but I want him to actually work on it, assemble parts and do things like that. So I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to say, instead of just viewing, let's allow him to edit things. And I'm going to allow him to link documents, which just basically means let's let him to assemble in other things. I don't really want him to, well, I'll let him make a copy of it, but I don't want him to delete it or anything like that. So I can really control, if they can edit it, exactly what kind of capabilities they have. I'm going to say, let's update that as well. And we'll say close. So now Nick gets an email, and my watch just vibrated, indicating that an email was sent. And so he gets the email and he clicks on it and says, Bill has invited you to collaborate on this part. So he's going to log in. And here's the thing that I sent him. So this is his action items. And he can just select on that. And here it shows him the fixture that we were working with. And everything's a hyperlink. So I can select on that, or Nick can select on that. And he sees the exact same thing that I see right here. So I'm going to kind of move my screen a little bit smaller so we can kind of see both people working at the same time. So, and this is the same part. So Nick can kind of take a look at it. One of the things that we can do is, to kind of explain this a little bit, we can go into what's called a follow mode. But as I spin, he spins. So I'm going to say, let's, one of the things that we have is we have some holes right here. You notice my mouse is a mouse. His, on the other hand, is like a little hand pointing. So I'm pointing out to him, because we're not always co-located, right? So it's a lot easier for us to communicate, especially in today's terms where a lot of people are working from home, where we can still communicate very easily. And I'm just saying, make a look at this. We're going to use this to kind of fasten the casting down. And then I'm going to create something in this area, another type of a plunger clamp for that. But that'll come in a little bit. So, I can type all this in. Are you okay with that? And he could say, sure. And the thing is that he can be independently doing things as well. So we're working on the exact same part at the exact same time, or we're looking at it at this particular point. And one of the things I'm going to do at this point is, kind of allow him to continue on with his work. And I'm going to go over here and say, I'm going to start doing my own stuff. So let's kind of take on Nick's persona for a little bit. He's got this fixture here, and he can take a look at the drawing that we were looking at earlier. And what we're working in is what's called a part studio. A part studio is made up of different parts, assemblies, drawings, and documents that are related to a particular aspect of a design, or maybe the whole design itself. In this particular case, we have a fixture component, and we have also the casting that we see here. So Nick can look at this. They can see that here's some of those holes that were going to be used to hold down this particular casting. So Nick can start working with this, and he's working in an assembly right now. So what he's going to say is, I want to insert that casting. So you can kind of browse for that. We can see little images. This is the casting that he needs to put into the assembly. And the thing is, with this casting, we can kind of assemble this using a variety of different constraints that we have up here. Just a fixed constraint, cylindrical, all the kind of mechanism type constraints that you could use. I'm just going to say kind of put it at its default location. So now we have the fixture placed here, and you can see that the holes line up here for placing this, or kind of holding this in place. So the next thing that we're going to do is insert maybe a dowel to place here. So here's a dowel. I'm going to say, let's bring that in. We'll place it maybe right there. What I'm going to do is kind of manually place him in this hole. So we can come in and say, let's just kind of fix this guy. And it uses something called mates. And mates are, I kind of think of them as little coordinate systems. This is familiar terminology for AutoCAD people, or I should say SolidWorks people. But you can assemble two parts just with one mate. So you don't have to mate this surface and then align this surface and then offset the other one and control all these 3 degrees of freedom. It makes it very easy to assemble components. So I have this component put in here, and it's holding our casting down. But there's several other locations on here that also need this dowel. And I don't want to put it in 4 times. I shouldn't really have to. One of the things I can do is I can select on this, and I can say I want to replicate this. So here's our placement, and we'll say, let's put it on a plane, and we'll say, let's look at this level. So it puts one in over there, one in the back, one on the other side. So now we have 4 of those placed. So that was pretty easy. The next, I want to maybe place some hooks in here so that we can pick this fixture up, because it's going to be heavy. So one of the things I'm going to do here is come in and say, let's assemble in something else. In this particular case, I'll say, let's assemble in an assembly, not just a single part. So we'll say, let's bring in this hoist part. He can get placed automatically, kind of lined up here, but again, I need 4 of these, right? So instead of just patterning him, or instead of using the mates and things like that, in this particular case, I'm going to say, let's do a circular pattern of, let's pick our assembly here. Do a circular pattern. We'll say about the axis around the center here, and instead of 2, we'll say 4. So just real simple things like that, but now we've got everything pretty well fixed the way that we want so far. So let's go back and see what Bill is doing. And I'll come over here and say, let's expand this out a little bit. I'm going to open up, I have to develop a clamp here. It's kind of a plunger type clamp. And we'll get to kind of look at a little bit how we develop geometry here. I have some different sketches just to kind of save some time to kind of start working with this. So I'm going to take this particular sketch here, and let's just say I want to extrude that. And we'll also kind of extrude the center part here, and maybe only put in a height of like 3. So that'll be our first example, or I guess of an extrusion. And then we could say, let's continue on. Let's grab maybe this face and this face and do that. So now we've got a good start for this, and we can continue on. I've got another sketch here, so I'll turn off this top one, turn off this one. In this particular case, let's kind of spin it around this way. We'll use a different type of feature. Let's do something simple like let's grab this, and we'll say we'll revolve it about the center here. And this is the same kind of interface that we have for every feature that we create. This is a little dashboard for that. In this particular case, we can either create a new part. This is a multi-body modeler. I can add it to the first one. I can remove it from the first one, which is what I want to do. Or I could do an intersect. So that's our first kind of cut that we have on here. Additionally, I'm going to kind of grab these faces here, and I'll say, let's revolve those about maybe the same thing. In this case, we're adding that to the original one. So we're just kind of building on this body that we see here. And then finally, I'm going to come over here and grab these two faces. And I'm going to say, let's revolve those about the same center. But this, I want to make it a new part, right? Because this is going to be like a little O-ring. So you'll notice here, as we have our feature tree, down below here is really the different bodies that we are creating. And we can apply different materials, different colors, all of those things to those different bodies. So now that I've got a couple of parts set here, one of the things I'm going to do is maybe start to kind of hollow this out, right? So I have some other sketches out here. I'll kind of turn those on this guy. So I'm going to hide the first part initially. And with this, we can do maybe another revolve. And we'll say, let's revolve this geometry, this, and then we'll kind of grab all of this. So this is going to be cutting away material. So again, we'll just revolve it around an edge here. And we'll say remove it from the first part. And so that's our first cutaway. If we turn on our first part now, we can kind of see it here. Let's kind of take this, cut it back, and we can kind of see there's the cutout that I made. All right. So the next thing I want to do is now make the plunger portion of our clamp that we have here. So again, with the revolve feature, I'm going to say, let's revolve this and this here. Revolve it about this edge, and we'll make this a new part. And yeah, we'll keep it the same, I guess. So it'll be our third part. And then let's kind of turn on our main body here. We have another component that we want to put on the top of this plunger as this plunger is moving up and down. We'll go over here and we'll say, let's grab this guy and extrude him. And we'll make him a new part as well. So now we've got a part here. Another thing that I could do with this is I might want to, kind of cut this off a little bit. So I'm just going to take this, extrude that, remove some material. We'll say symmetric. So just kind of typical CAD stuff. Now the thing is that the head of this should really be up here, but the sketch is down here. I could have said start the sketch up here and go to the top, but I wanted to use another capability in Onshape that's pretty useful, and it's just called transform. So I can pick on a body like this, and I want to transform, and we'll say let's just move it from the top of this body. And it's kind of using those mates that I used before to assemble things, from the top of that guy to the top of that guy. So now we've got our parts created here. One of the nice things that I can do is, because this is an assembly, we have, or we're working in actually the part studio now, I can easily go in here and start changing the colors of things. So, and add materials and things like that. So I'm gonna say, let's change that to blue, maybe make this kind of a gray color, and then make the main body blue as well. And then maybe the O-ring. I'll make them stand out a little bit, kind of give them a yellow color. So now I've got this created. I'm going to go in and create an assembly. Right now, these are separate parts, or bodies, I should say. And they, in far as Onshape is concerned, these really are parts. I can assemble any one of these into another assembly. I can make drawings of any one of them. I don't have to do anything other than that, right? Other than just making this body, it's a good standalone part. But now I want to make an assembly. So I'll just come down here and simply say, let's create an assembly. And I can bring these parts in one at a time, or since they're all kind of created together, I can bring them in all at once. So I'll just say, bring in this whole kind of part studio at once and place it at 0, 0, 0. So at this point, it brings in the parts. We do have a bill of material right here. So we can see the quantity, part numbers, all of those types of things. I could come in here and say, I just want to add the name of the component as one of the columns. And we'll take the description and we'll kind of remove that column, and then we'll move the name over a little bit. One of the interesting things about the bill of material is that anything that is in the part can get pulled into the bill of material, or vice versa. While I'm here, we can see that this first part, maybe I'll just call it like the body, right? Or the second part is really the O-ring. The third part is like the plunger. And you'll also notice that as I'm changing the names here, they're changing over here. And finally, the fourth part, we'll just say is like the head part. So now I've got the parts created here. You'll notice that the feature tree has changed now to an assembly tree, right? Just the listing of the components that are there. This is the exact same bill of material that we will see when and if I make a drawing for this, right? So however this is set up, that's the one. When I say import and use a bill of material, this is the one it is. So now that I have this placed, these parts are brought in, but they're really just kind of laying on top of each other. I can grab any part and move it around. And really I want to just kind of have some things a little bit more organized than that. So I'm going to grab this part and this part, and I'm going to say group those together. So by it being a group, now if I move them, they move around together. I can do the same with this. I can I'm going to take the body part. Since this is going to be kind of a mechanism, I'm going to say fix him so he doesn't move. And then I could say, take the body part, or I could just actually just drag a box around him too. Just grab these guys and say make a group of those. So by doing that, I'm actually grouping together something that's fixed, so they're all fixed, or at least these two parts are, so they don't move around. I can't drag them around anywhere. So now I want to think how this behaves. I'm going to come in and say I want to create a cylindrical joint between the middle of the shaft and maybe the top of this hole. So now we've got a cylindrical joint. That means it can move up and down and it can rotate. I want to put some limits on it because I don't want this thing, banging into the bottom or going up too high. So up here I could say, it can maybe move down 20 millimeters. It can move up maybe 25, and maybe for rotation, maybe 360 degrees. So now we have this set up so that we can move it around, and it's actually a good mechanism and a good assembly to start working with. Now I haven't made a drawing yet, so I'll do that real quickly, just so you can see a little bit of drawing creation here. I'm going to use a default template that I created with the EAC company logo. Again, there's lots of formats that come with this of different sizes, but again, most people always kind of customize things to their own liking. These templates can automatically place different views in the assembly or in the drawing for you. In this case, I'm going to do it manually just so you can kind of see how that works. But I'm going to say I want to assemble in. I can, as you notice, I can assemble in or make drawing of any of these parts that I want. I'm going to say let's make a drawing of the assembly that we created here, and I'll put maybe a view here and then a kind of a projection view up above it, maybe up there. Over here, we can also maybe put in an isometric view, and let's maybe take this and we can make it maybe a shaded view. And then there's also pop-up capabilities. We can pop up commands, so I don't have to go to the top to get the same commands. And in this case, I'll say, let's just use maybe a section view and place that right here. So now we have a cross-sectional view of this. I'm going to go back and let's go in. I can put a rev table in here. So right now we're working on revision A, and then also put in our bill of material that we've been developing. So this will have the part names that I put in there, quantities and things like that. Now I notice one of the things, this head part is like a big thick piece still. So I'm just going to go back here and take a look at this part from the bottom side and say, let's maybe shell that out. And this will show us something that Onshape does, which is kind of unique. And it does this in all different aspects, and we'll see this again in a minute. But I've kind of hollowed out that head. And again, if we go back to the drawing, now the drawing doesn't automatically show that. What it will do is put a little yellow circle up here saying that this is out of date and that we can update it. The reason that this is done is that sometimes you can have a pretty complicated drawing, right? Lots of parts, lots of cross sections, and all different kinds of views and notes and things like that. And to regenerate the whole drawing might take, 20, 30 seconds. And really all I need to do is put in a couple of dimensions, so I don't need to update it right away. I have control, basically, is what I'm saying, of when things update and when they don't. So in this particular case, I'm just going to say, let's just update this so we can see the top part update. And we can see that here is, now reflecting that. So now that I have the drawing created, one of the things that's unique about Onshape is everything that I have done is saved. So every command that I have used so far to create this is listed right here. I can go back to any point in time and say, let's make this the current place that we start working from. So you never lose anything. You can always go back to it. One of the things that I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a version for this. So you notice the history is there's a start and there's a current place right now. There's nothing in between. But what we can do is at certain points, we could say something is important enough where we're going to put in a version number. So I'm going to say create a version. And we'll say, let's just call it like version 1 here. And we'll say ready for assembly or something. And I can put in a description and things like that. So I've made this version. Now, we can see in the history tree now that there is a version here. And I can go back to this version, this moment in time, this snapshot, anytime that I want. When I assemble this into any other assembly, it wants a version to assemble it to, because this is dynamic. This current recent history can constantly be changing. So we assemble in a particular version. So this might be the version that we release, or this might be the version that's suitable for a particular part or assembly, or in this case for our project. So now that we have this ready to go, I can go over here and send a note back over to Nick saying things are ready. Now he won't be able to see this, right? Because so far I've created this in a vacuum. So I'm going to say I want to share this. And who do I want to share it with? I'll say let's share it with Nick. So up until now, the only thing he's had access to is the fixture and the part itself, that casting part. Now, in this particular case, I want him to be able to assemble this part in, so I'm going to say he can link it. Right? But other than that, all of that's good. So I'm going to say we'll share that. So now Nick has a couple things shared with him. And one of the interesting things is, as soon as he is finished, I just hit this X button, he no longer has access to it. So if I send a drawing to somebody to look at or something like that, once they're done looking at it, or once I'm satisfied that I've got the information from them, I just take them off the list and they no longer have access to it. So I have absolute control very easily on who can do what. But so now this is available for Nick to use. So we'll come back over into Nick's world, and he can continue on. I'll kind of close out his little window over here. And so now he can say, I want to insert something. And he's going to say an assembly and under other documents, so something that's not currently here. And I could say something that's recently shared. Stuff that's shared with me. See, there it is. Now he can see that. So he wants to bring that in. So he'll say, let's bring this little sub-assembly that Bill made, and we'll put it right here. And so this is the one where he wants to place it in the hole here. So we're going to use the same commands that we're using before. In this case, we'll use kind of a fixed command, and we'll say, let's kind of turn it this way. And let's say there, and line it up at the top right here. We'll say OK. So here's our clamp that's brought in. Remember that we can move this around because we allowed it to. And so we put a clamp in there. Now we need a bunch, right? We have a couple of them all the way around here. So I'm going to use the same kind of approach that we used before, where we're going to come in and use this replicate or repeat this guy. We want to repeat our assembly that we put in here. And in this case, we're going to use a different option. We're going to say everything on this face. So this is kind of the default one. So it doesn't really necessarily have to search for a pattern of holes, but what it does is it looks for that same size hole on this plate, and then it places them all over there. So now we can see that we have these guys here. And again, I can kind of come in and kind of rotate these around so their correct location, all obviously independent from one another. So now that I have this, things are pretty much ready to go. Now, one other aspect of Onshape is that there's also the ability, as I mentioned before, is to kind of use this on a phone. So I'm going to share this. Let's see. I'm going to share my phone with you for a second here. So here we can go and take a look at our assembly here. See what documents we have. So the interesting thing, like I mentioned before, is that Onshape allows us to access the capabilities here while we're working on it. So we can see the exact same assembly that Nick and Bill have been designing. I can move my fingers apart, move them together, it kind of zooms in, zooms out, and I can look at the different components here. I'm going to look at this clamp idea. So this is that clamp that I developed before, and kind of spinning this around, I could say, maybe this head right here is a little bit short, right? We might want to change that. So while I'm here in my phone, I can come over and say, let's take a look at this. Let's edit that shape. Oh, wrong one, Bill. Let's edit this guy. And let's look at it maybe from the top view. I'm just going to double click, say instead of 63, let's make it 75 millimeters, and say go. Hit the X and a little check mark. Now, one thing that I'm going to show you here, which is really kind of interesting. So now we've kind of lengthened the head, as you can see here. While I was on my phone. Interesting thing, 1 out of 8 people that access Onshape use their phone. Now, they aren't actually making parts. Maybe some people are, but typically you're taking a part in maybe design reviews or release processes or something like that. So if we go and take a look at the part over here, we can see that it's been updated. I want to show you something. Now, I assembled in this clamp, and we can see that there's a little symbol next to each one of these guys. And what it says is that this is a versioned assembly. So what that means is we've assembled in a particular version. Now we have a different variation of this. So I'm going to say, I'm going to make a new version. I'm going to call it version 2, and I could say, longer head or something like that. I'll say, let's create that. And watch these guys there. They just changed. You notice how that icon changed? Find a data management system that works that fast. There isn't one. You have to do a check-in, you do a check-out, it's making all this stuff in the background. Here, there is no check-in, no check-out, everything is connected. So as soon as I change this, it is saying now, this indicates to me that there's a newer version of this. Now, this is important. A lot of people that I've talked to will try to disassociate parts because I've got the same part and I use it in 100 different places, and if somebody changes it, it's going to change it in 100 different places, and I don't want that. Right? That change might be good in one of those places, but the other 99, it's not. And so they go through all kinds of gyrations to not have associativity, to not have parts update. Onshape will allow you to have parts update. It will tell you if there's a newer version, but it won't update them. If I want that newer version, I can go and there could be 5 different versions. I could look at all 5, pop them up, look at them, and decide if I want to update these or not. In this particular case, I'm going to say, yeah, I do want to update these guys. So I can just grab all of them. And I can come over here and just say, I want to go and update this document. Here's the clamp. You want to update it with the next version, which would be version 2. I'll say update all. And if we look at these guys, they just got longer. So very, very easy for us to collaborate, to work in a project, be able to control which things are updating, which things aren't. We have total control of who does what. It's the best tool you can find for doing project design, project-based designs. I kind of overwent my schedule a little bit, Sierra, sorry about that, but that's kind of what I wanted to cover here today. And we'll open it up for questions right now if you have any.